Ahmad Sauce Gardner is one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL right now. The New York Jets know that, so they keep a safety over the top of Tyreek Hill to the bottom of the screen and ask Gardner to cover Jaylen Waddle one-on-one without any help. This is an old Bill Belichick strategy of using your best cornerback on the opposition's second best receiver so you can double team the main threat. Gardner doesn't try to jam Waddle or press him tightly during his release. He sits off and is quick to turn towards the sideline, so he is set up to run with the receiver vertically. Waddle's speed puts him on top of Gardner almost instantly. He's looking back for the ball early in the play, while Gardner is already pressing to try and recover his position. Waddle is gone at this point. This ball should lead him deep downfield and allow him to open up to sprint away from Gardner. Instead, the ball hangs in the air and arrives too shallow, forcing Waddle to come back to it and catch the ball through the cornerback's coverage. Gardner is the favourite to knock this ball away incomplete, but Waddle's ability to recognise it, redirect back through it, and the strength of his hands allow him to save the completion. Not many receivers have ever made Gardner look like such an ordinary talent. Against the same team but in their other matchup last season, Waddle got a chance to work against the Jets' other starting cornerback, DJ Reed. Reed is an above average starting cornerback, so even though it's not Gardner, this is still not an easy matchup. The defense is playing quarters coverage and Waddle begins the play by running a vertical stem directly to Reed's spot in the field. By doing this, he fixes the cornerback in his spot and sets up the opportunity to break inside on a post route. With one hard, elongated step inside, he gets Reed flat-footed. All Waddle needed was for the cornerback to let his heel on his left foot hit the ground, so his weight was to his inside. Reed actually does an incredible job of recovering here. He turns with Waddle so that he's still in position to cover him when the receiver straightens. But of course, Waddle's athleticism means he can still win that race even while taking a wider loop to get past him. This time the ball clears the defensive back more easily and allows Waddle to catch it in stride. Playing on the same team as Tyreek Hill means your speed is never likely to be celebrated, but Waddle is an incredibly difficult receiver for cornerbacks to stick with. Reed isn't left diving to the floor in desperation like this too often. Stephon Gilmore is an older cornerback now. He's no longer the bump and run defender he was during his prime, so he starts his play on the first down line. It's 3rd and 9. Gilmore is playing off-man coverage with safety help inside. Not only does Gilmore start at the first down line, but he backpedals for 5 more yards so that he's still backpedaling when Waddle reaches the first down line. Gilmore has played this route perfectly to give himself the best opportunity to turn and run with Waddle, but there's no competition here. Waddle glides past him as if he's still in second gear, whereas Gilmore is trying to sprint but can't get close. The gap he establishes widens the longer the play goes on, and the only thing stopping Waddle from scoring a touchdown is him being led over the sideline. Against the New England Patriots, the first thing to note here is the space over the middle of the field. The safety is split to the opposite side, creating a gap in the coverage before the play begins. Waddle is isolated on the narrow side of the field at the top of the screen. With that space over the middle, the cornerback to his side is deep off the line of scrimmage, but also heavily shaded to the inside. The Dolphins use a play fake, but the Patriots are blitzing their weak side safety either way. That leaves Waddle one-on-one with the cornerback to his side of the field. The cornerback knows the ball has to come out quickly because of the blitz, so he's happy to establish inside and turn to try and force Waddle down the sideline. Waddle presses the vertical of his stem just enough to get the cornerback to turn his hips and fully commit to covering the sideline. From there, the receiver is way too fast for the cornerback to even be a factor at the catch point. While he's obviously not as fast in a straight line as his teammate Tyreek Hill, there aren't many receivers in the NFL who are quicker than Waddle going through the breaks of their routes. It makes him incredibly difficult to stop no matter the coverage. The New York Giants are going to play man coverage here, but with safety help over the top and a linebacker covering the middle of the field. Waddle is isolated on the near side of the field again, this time to the bottom of the screen. He closes the space directly to his cornerback so he doesn't tip off his route. The cornerback has safety help behind him and the linebacker in the middle of the field off screen, but he has to account for the space outside of him. Waddle is going to threaten that space by slaloming with his next step after this point of the play. We'll slow it down so you can see his right foot come across his body slightly before he pushes back inside. That's enough to make the defender hesitate for a split second, giving Waddle the chance to turn inside of him. His speed through the break puts him in front of the defender when the ball arrives, and he uses his body to protect the ball at the catch point. That cornerback had plenty of help and he still couldn't match Waddle's speed and precision. For this 3rd and 12 against the Washington Commanders, we see a cornerback take a more aggressive approach. We've seen how quick Waddle can be when defenders sit off of him. Now let's see how quick he can be when the defender puts his hands on him early in the play. Washington are playing 2-man, so the underneath defenders can be as aggressive as they want. They know they have 2 deep defenders to play to. The cornerback doesn't jam Waddle at the line, but he also doesn't concede ground when the receiver comes towards him. Waddle is proactive. He brings his right arm up to prevent the defender from getting to his body early. The defender doesn't engage that arm, but then immediately looks to knock Waddle off balance by hitting his inside shoulder. Waddle isn't bothered by that hand. He continues vertically upfield before taking an elongated step across the defender's body. He's purposely putting the defender on his back before making his cut inside. A key detail to note at this stage of the play is that the safety to Waddle's side is cheating to the opposite side of the field. That leaves the middle of the field wide open for Waddle. By stepping across the defender, it's harder for him to follow Waddle when he cuts sharply towards the middle of the field. Waddle's body becomes an obstacle. That allows Waddle to come wide open, make the catch, and then finish the play moving forward for a first down on 3rd and 12. The suddenness with which Waddle moves, as well as his understanding of leverage in his routes, allows him to make plays such as this one look easy. The Buffalo Bills are going to play a similar coverage here with 2 safeties deep and man coverage underneath. This time Waddle is next to Tyreek Hill. He's the outside receiver. Hill will run his route in behind Waddle during the release, which forces the cornerback covering Waddle to concede ground. Based on Hill breaking outside and Waddle turning inside, the cornerback expects Waddle to run some form of crossing route. He has safety help over the top anyway, so he can afford to be a bit more aggressive. The cornerback drives down quickly, putting his body in front of Waddle to stop the crossing route. But Waddle isn't running a crossing route. He never was. Waddle shows great quickness to turn upfield, past the defender's outside shoulder, so he breaks vertically rather than horizontally across the middle. You'll notice that Waddle again steps into the defender before cutting away from him. He didn't try to make one swift cutting move when he turned, he added that extra step to get into the body of the defender. It helps him get open here, but it also gives time for Hill to clear the outside defender down the sideline. Waddle comes wide open for his quarterback and even finishes the play going up the sideline to extend the gain. If Waddle wanted to make that cut sharper and faster, he could have. Here we'll see him rinse another Patriots cornerback with a somewhat similar route in a different way. The Patriots are playing cover 1 robber, so the safety to Waddle's side of the field rotates down and inside when the ball is snapped. That leaves Waddle in space against the cornerback outside. The stem of Waddle's route perfectly sets up a skinny post. The cornerback can see Waddle breaking into the space vacated by the safety, so he has to accelerate after him to cover the immediate threat. Waddle takes one hard step and pushes back in the opposite direction off of his left heel to break towards the sideline. The cornerback covering him is an ocean away now when he's facing the wrong direction. He's a non-factor for the receiver. It's another wide open downfield throw for the quarterback, where Waddle can even stop in his route as he catches the ball. In Mike McDaniel's offense, the receivers run a lot of slant routes. Waddle is as good of a slant route runner as there is in the league. This first play against the Chargers sees him lined up in the slot to the bottom of the screen. The defense is 2 safeties deep, while the offense has emptied the backfield to spread the field. Waddle's first movement isn't to step forward into his route, instead he shifts his front foot forward to close the space between him and the cornerback. He's essentially resetting the line of scrimmage here, so he can begin his release to get by the defender. After shuffling his feet to make the defender hesitate, Waddle jab steps hard to the outside and uses his upper body to sell the outside release. That sells the defender sideways, but instead of immediately turning into his slant route, Waddle's next step threatens vertically so the defender can't follow his first reaction. He's slowed down again as Waddle breaks towards the middle of the field. Each of these movements happen very quickly and they seem like small details, but they all serve a clear purpose and the end goal of getting Waddle open in time to catch the ball. Once he has done that, he's able to escape to the opposite sideline for a huge gain. Waddle's quickness opens up windows in tight coverage for his quarterback. The New York Jets do nothing wrong here, but Waddle's quickness, his precision, and his intelligence make it impossible for them to cover him. Not only that, Waddle can put himself in dangerous spots over the middle of the field and still avoid taking heavy hits thanks to his awareness and quickness. On this play against the Raiders, he's breaking in behind the underneath coverage and in front of the safety. This is always a very dangerous spot in the field, but especially so when working against zone coverage. The safety drops deep at the snap, but he reads the quarterback so he's driving forward off his back foot as soon as the quarterback begins his throwing motion. Waddle is looking back for the ball and will be until he catches it. Everything in shadow here is a blind spot for him. Waddle leaves his feet to catch the ball so he's more vulnerable at the catch point, but we can see that he's already turning his head to look over his upfield shoulder. That and his athleticism allows him to somehow skip past the hit completely unscathed. He found himself in a similar position against the Patriots on this play, but this time the off-ball defender arriving to hit him is coming from in his line of vision. This is critical because Waddle has to make a more elaborate move to avoid the torpedoing defender this time around. He again comes out completely untouched. Of course there are times when Waddle can't avoid a hit like this, and that's when he gets to show off his toughness. Tua Tagovailoa sets Waddle up to be destroyed on display against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans are playing 8 defenders in coverage. Tagovailoa sees the deep defender in the middle of the field turn and run with the vertical route. Because of that, he thinks that Waddle is about to run into wide open space and behind the linebackers, so he winds up to throw the ball in the passing lane between them. Waddle didn't see the same thing, so he's actually pulling up after coming out of his break. He reacts to the ball in the air and reaccelerates to reach it over the middle of the field. field. But that aforementioned deep defender is now driving forward. The defender absolutely crushes the receiver here, but he didn't flinch. Waddle attacked the ball at full speed, won it, and maintained control of it all the way to the ground. The defender celebrates, but Waddle got the first down. The Dolphins never have to worry about Waddle's willingness or bravery working the middle of the field. They can also trust him to consistently find a soft spot against zone coverages. This is 4th and 5 against the Jets. The Dolphins need a play. Waddle is the only receiver working the middle of the field. During his stem, it looks like the cornerback across from him will pick him up in man coverage, but that defender drifts into an outside zone, leaving Waddle to work against the 2 linebackers and deep safety over the middle. Waddle has to break his route off in behind the linebacker, but flatten it so that he doesn't drift too close towards the deep safety. He keeps tight to the linebacker's back so that the safety isn't a factor at all, and he was on track to perfectly time his route so that he would be equidistant between the 2 linebackers at the green mark here. Tagovailoa threw the ball slightly behind Waddle, which is what leads him closer to the first linebacker. He uses that ball placement to work back across the field in the opposite direction after the catch. Getting the first down wasn't enough for Waddle, who showed off his elusiveness going downfield. Against the Kansas City Chiefs, the Dolphins go max protect to give their quarterback and receivers time. Waddle is in the slot with Tyreek Hill outside of him running a vertical route. It's Waddle's responsibility to find the soft spot in the zone by cutting his route off at the right depth. He's not working the middle of the field this time, but conceptually it's the same approach. He has to clear the underneath defender and not drift upfield towards the outside cornerback. Waddle finds that soft spot and the ball arrives on time for another first down. If you can criticise Waddle for anything, it's that he will drop balls that he shouldn't on occasion. It's not a chronic problem, but it's prevalent enough that it's worthy of a mention. But what's also important is how often he adjusts to the ball in the air with his ball skills. Tagovailoa is going to be late with his throw here against the Philadelphia Eagles. Waddle is wide open because the cornerback covering him plays off from the start and there's nobody in the middle of the field. This is the point of the play when the ball should be coming out of Tagovailoa's hand. Instead, he holds the ball too long, which means Waddle's route carries too far across the field. Waddle should have been catching the ball in stride with space between him and the deep safety to make him miss after the catch. Instead, the receiver had to make a great adjustment just to save the completion for the quarterback. Against the Chiefs, Waddle makes a similar style adjustment, but arguably a more impressive one. This time Tagovailoa is trying to lead his receiver away from the defenders covering across from the middle of the field. He has the right idea, but the ball is slightly too low and slightly too wide, forcing Waddle into a spectacular adjustment working against his momentum once again. Against Washington, you see Waddle run a post route and the ball arrives on his back hip, forcing him to turn into a heavy hit from the defender. He still makes the play. For this touchdown against the New York Giants, Tagovailoa tests all of Waddle's athleticism and body control with an overthrow in the end zone. Waddle is so smooth making this adjustment that you'd be forgiven for not realising how difficult of a play it actually is to make. He can high point the ball, he can tap his toes going out of bounds, and he can climb above cornerbacks after beating their press coverage downfield to turn underthrown balls into big plays. Waddle is a quarterback's best friend in every way imaginable. The only reason anyone looked curiously at the money he just got paid is because he plays on a team with Tyreek Hill. Similar to Devonta Smith in Philadelphia, Waddle is the number 2 receiver, but he's not a number 2 receiver. He's a number 1. The Miami Dolphins just haven't needed him to be that just yet.